The Silent Ascension. The stars had never shown kindness to humanity. When the Galactic Collective, a conglomerate of over 200 advanced alien civilizations, discovered Earth in 2137, they deemed humanity unworthy of membership, too aggressive, too unpredictable, and far too emotional. Humans were judged as a primitive species with a disturbing propensity for violence. The collective established a quarantine zone around Earth's solar system, forbidding trade, technological exchange, or colonization efforts. Their verdict was clear. Humanity would remain isolated on their dying planet, left to whatever fate awaited them. Earth was already suffocating. Climate catastrophes had rendered vast regions uninhabitable. Resource wars had devastated economies and infrastructure. The discovery of alien life should have been humanity's salvation. Instead, it became the final nail in their coffin. The collective had the power to help, but had already decided that humanity wasn't worth saving. Admiral Sophia Chen stood at the window of Lunar Base Artemis, watching the beautiful blue marble that was Earth, once the crown jewel of human civilization, now a patchwork of habitable zones surrounded by wastelands. 20 years had passed since the collective's judgment, and humanity's situation had only worsened. "They think they've contained us," she said to the group of military officers and scientists gathered behind her. "They believe we're too busy fighting among ourselves to look outward. That's our advantage." On the holographic display at the center of the room, a schematic of the solar system showed dozens of small points of light, hidden facilities, camouflaged satellites, and stealth vessels. Invisible to the collective's orbital patrols, these installations represented humanity's refusal to accept extinction. "Project Phantom has reached Phase 3, announced Dr. Alejandro Reyes, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of the hologram. "The quantum tunneling prototypes are operational." A murmur of anticipation rippled through the room. Quantum tunneling, the ability to create stable wormholes across vast distances, was the key technology humanity needed. The collective controlled traditional FTL travel through a network of jump gates, all carefully monitored to prevent unauthorized passage. But quantum tunneling would allow humans to bypass these restrictions entirely. "How did you solve the energy problem?" asked General Takeda, his skepticism evident. Dr. Reyes smiled thinly. "We didn't, but the Meridians did." Another ripple of surprise. The Meridians were another species rejected by the collective, silicon-based life forms considered too alien even for the diverse collective standards. Humanity's deep space probes had encountered them 3 years ago in the unpatrolled regions beyond Neptune. Unlike the collective, the Meridians saw potential in humanity. "The exchange is mutually beneficial," Admiral Chen explained. "We provide them with rare heavy metals they need for reproduction. They provide us with their crystal technology that can harness energy from quantum fluctuations." The alliance was risky but necessary. Rejected species finding strength together in defiance of the collective's judgment. "When can we begin operations beyond the quarantine zone?" asked Commander Ilara Hayes, the youngest officer present, but already legendary for her tactical brilliance. "Immediately," replied Admiral Chen with grim satisfaction. "And you, Commander, will lead the first mission." 3 days later, Commander Hayes stood inside a cramped stealth vessel called the Wraith, approaching the edge of the quarantine zone. Her crew, a hand-picked team of 12, monitored systems with quiet intensity. Their mission was simple yet audacious: hijack a collective science vessel, extract its technological database, and return undetected. "Quantum drive charge," reported Lieutenant Malik from the engine room. "Tunnel coordinates locked." Hayes took a deep breath. No human had legally ventured beyond the quarantine zone in 2 decades. If caught, they would be summarily eliminated, and Earth would face severe repercussions. "Initiate tunneling," she ordered. The space around the Wraith shimmered, then twisted. A sensation like falling through ice water washed over the crew as the quantum tunnel formed, a temporary passage through the fabric of space-time. In seconds, They emerged 50 light-years from Earth, deep in collective territory. Status: Hayes demanded, fighting back nausea from the jump. All systems operational. Stealth field holding. Target vessel detected on long-range scanners, replied her second-in-command, Rivera. The collective science ship, designated the Empyrean Scholar, drifted peacefully through the darkness, its crew unaware they were being stalked. The vessel contained a wealth of knowledge, technological blueprints, star charts, communication protocols that would accelerate humanity's clandestine advancement by centuries. Begin approach. Prepare boarding tactics, Hayes ordered. For the next 6 hours, the Wraith shadowed the Empyrean Scholar, analyzing its defenses and patrol patterns. When the moment came, they struck with surgical precision. EMP charges disabled external communications, while specially designed drones attached to the hull and cut through at predetermined points. Hayes led the boarding party herself, her pulse rifle at the ready as they breached the alien vessel. The collective scientists, a mixture of tentacled Exorians and crystalline Vashtari, offered minimal resistance. They had never expected to be attacked, especially not by humans who were supposedly trapped in their home system. Within 20 minutes, the ship was secured. Download in progress, reported tech specialist Chong, her fingers dancing across the alien interfaces she had trained for years to understand. Estimated completion time: 43 minutes. Hayes nodded, studying one of the Exorian scientists who watched them with 4 unblinking eyes. "You underestimated us," she told the alien. "Your collective made a critical error." The Exorian's tentacles writhed in what might have been indignation. "You proved the collective's judgment correct with this act of aggression," it replied in heavily accented English. Hayes smiled coldly. "No, we proved that leaving us to die was your mistake. Humanity doesn't accept extinction. Remember that." The raid was successful. The Wraith returned to Earth with terabytes of invaluable data, the foundation upon which humanity would build its shadow empire among the stars. Similar missions followed, each more daring than the last. Within 5 years, humans had established hidden outposts on uninhabited worlds beyond the quarantine zone, using quantum tunneling to travel undetected. The Phantom Network, as it came to be known, operated with absolute secrecy, while Earth continued to appear isolated and struggling. Maintaining the illusion for collective observers, humanity was silently expanding. Underground facilities on distant moons, hidden colonies in asteroid belts, research stations camouflaged within gas giant storms, a civilization growing in the darkness between stars, unseen and unsuspected. Admiral Chen, now gray-haired but no less determined, stood before the Phantom Council, the governing body of humanity's secret expansion, a decade after that first mission. On the display behind her, a map showed hundreds of human outposts scattered across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. "Phase 4 is complete," she announced. "Our industrial capacity now exceeds pre-collective levels. Our technology, enhanced by what we've acquired, has advanced beyond many collective member species. We are no longer fighting for survival." Commander Hayes, now Admiral Hayes, studied the map with satisfaction. "Then what are we fighting for now?" Admiral Chen's eyes hardened. "Recognition. The collective needs to understand they made a grave error in judgment. It's time to emerge from the shadows." A murmur ran through the council chamber. This was the moment they had been preparing for, the unveiling of humanity's quiet ascension. After decades of operating unseen, they would show the galaxy that humanity had not merely survived, but thrived despite the collective's abandonment. "We cannot match their numbers," warned General Takeda, now an old man but still a voice of caution. "We don't need to," replied Hayes. "We just need to demonstrate that their security isn't as absolute as they believe, that their control of galactic affairs has holes they never noticed." Dr. Reyes stepped forward, his holographic presence flickering slightly. He was transmitting from the Meridian homeworld, where he now served as ambassador. "The Meridians are prepared to stand with us, as are the Vorax, and the zenith combine. Other rejected species who had formed alliances with humanity in the shadows. Separately, they had been deemed unworthy. Together, they had built something the collective never anticipated. An alternative power block beyond their control or knowledge. "Then it's decided," said Admiral Chen. "Operation Daybreak begins in one standard month. Prepare all assets." As the council dispersed, Admiral Hayes remained behind, staring at the galactic map. From rejection had come resilience. From isolation had come innovation. The collective had intended to contain humanity on a dying world, but instead had created the perfect conditions for humanity to evolve into something far more dangerous, a species with nothing to lose, operating beyond the rules. "They should have helped us," she murmured to herself. "Now they'll have to face us instead." The unveiling. In the gleaming spires of Harmonia, the capital world of the Galactic Collective, Ambassador Theros of the Arcadian hegemony stood before the Security Council with growing concern. The elegant, six-limbed diplomat's scales shimmered with anxiety as he presented his findings. "The pattern is undeniable," he insisted, gesturing to the data streams projected above the circular chamber. "Over the past 16 standard cycles, we've documented 173 distinct anomalies across collective space. Ships disappearing briefly from monitoring systems, unexplained energy signatures, resource outposts reporting inventory discrepancies." High Chancellor Ziv, the ancient Quarian who had led the collective for nearly a century, dismissed the concerns with a wave of her gossamer appendage. "Anomalies occur constantly in a civilization spanning thousands of worlds. Ambassador, your pattern-seeking may be admirable, but lacks significant evidence of coordination." Theros' inner eyelids flickered in frustration. For years, he had sensed something moving in the darkness between stars, something the collective refused to acknowledge. As overseer of the quarantine zone around Sol, he had always harbored doubts about the decision to isolate humanity. Now those doubts were hardening into certainty. "Chancellor, with respect, I believe." The chamber's emergency alert system cut him off mid-sentence. Crimson light bathed the assembled diplomats as urgent reports flooded in from across collective space. Simultaneously, on 17 separate worlds, critical infrastructure had come under attack. Power distribution hubs, communication relays, transportation nexuses, all struck with devastating precision by unknown forces that seemed to appear from nowhere and vanish just as quickly. "Impossible," breathed Chancellor Ziv, her composure cracking for the first time in Theros' memory. The attacks continued for 27 minutes, not long enough for any significant collective military response to mobilize. When they ceased, the attackers left behind a single message, broadcast on all collective frequencies: "The shadows have watched long enough. The abandoned have returned." In the chaos that followed, only Theros recognized the implication immediately. "It's them," he whispered. "It's humanity." 12 hours later, as the collective's emergency response team struggled to restore critical systems, Theros' personal transport vessel slipped quietly out of Harmonia's orbital dock. His destination: the quarantine zone around Earth. If humanity was indeed behind these attacks, he needed to understand how they had evaded containment so thoroughly. His vessel, the Twilight Seeker, was equipped with the most advanced sensor technology in the collective. If anyone could uncover the truth, it would be him. What he discovered upon reaching the edge of the quarantine zone defied all expectation. The monitoring satellites and patrol vessels were still in place, still reporting normal conditions. Earth still appeared isolated, struggling, confined to its solar system. But when Theros deployed his experimental quantum field sensors, the illusion shattered. Dozens of invisible corridors stretched out from the Sol system, temporary wormholes that opened and closed in milliseconds, undetectable to standard collective technology. Earth wasn't isolated at all. It was the center of a vast, hidden network that extended throughout collective space and beyond. "By the Ancient Ones," Theros murmured, his scales paling to ashen gray. "They've been everywhere, watching, learning." Building. Before he could report his findings to Harmonia, the Twilight Seeker's systems suddenly locked down. Emergency bulkheads sealed. Engines died. A quantum distortion field enveloped the ship, and through the viewport, Theros watched as a vessel materialized from seemingly empty space, sleek, predatory, and unmistakably of human design. Admiral Ilara Hayes stood on the bridge of the Phantom Dominion, the flagship of humanity's hidden fleet, watching as tractor beams secured the collective ambassador's vessel. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back in a tight bun, her weathered face bearing the lines of decades spent building an empire in secret. "Bring him aboard," she ordered, respectfully. "He's about to become very important to our future." When Ambassador Theros was escorted onto the bridge, his dignified composure belied the fear Hayes knew he must be feeling. The bridge crew, the mixture of humans and several alien species the collective had similarly rejected, regarded him with expressions ranging from curiosity to undisguised hostility. "Ambassador Theros," Hayes greeted him. "Welcome to the Phantom Network. I am Admiral Ilara Hayes of Earth." Theros' inner eyelids flickered rapidly. "Impossible. Humans do not possess this level of technology." The quarantine was ineffective, Hayes finished for him. "Your collective made a critical error in judgment 25 years ago. You thought isolation would contain us. Instead, it forced us to evolve in ways you never anticipated." She gestured to a holographic display that materialized between them, showing a map of the galaxy with hundreds of points of light, human outposts, colonies, research stations, and military installations, all hidden from collective detection. "This is humanity's response to abandonment," Hayes explained. "We built an empire in the shadows while you believed us trapped on a dying world. We forged alliances with other species your collective rejected as unworthy. We developed technologies your scientists deemed impossible." Theros studied the map with growing comprehension. "The anomalies, the missing resources, it was all you." Hayes nodded. "We needed materials, information, sometimes specific technologies. We took what we needed, carefully, quietly. Until now. Why reveal yourselves with these attacks?" Theros demanded. "If you've built all this in secret, why expose your advantage?" Hayes' expression hardened. "Because the time for hiding is over. Earth is dying, Ambassador. Despite all our advancements, our homeworld cannot be saved without resources beyond our reach. We need official recognition. We need an end to the quarantine. We need a place in this galaxy you tried to deny us. The collective will never negotiate with aggressors." Theros replied, though uncertainty edged his voice. "They already are," Hayes countered, nodding to a communications officer who activated another display. Across collective space, the coordinated strikes had continued, not destroying, but demonstrating vulnerability. Critical systems briefly taken offline, then restored. Military vessels disabled, then released. It wasn't wholesale destruction, but a calculated demonstration of capability. "We could have caused catastrophic damage," Hayes noted. "Instead, we showed restraint. This isn't war, Ambassador. It's a negotiation opening." As they spoke, a massive quantum distortion formed near Harmonia itself, the collective capital. Through it emerged a fleet of vessels, human ships alongside Meridian crystalline constructs, Vorax living vessels, and the geometric perfection of Zenith combined crafts. All species rejected by the collective, all now united in a show of force that could not be ignored. "Your Chancellor is receiving our terms as we speak," Hayes informed Theros. "Recognition of the Phantom Alliance as a sovereign power, an end to the quarantine of Earth and all other isolated species, reparations for the damage caused by your abandonment policy, and a seat at the galactic table we were denied." Theros' scales shifted to a deep blue, a sign of profound realization among his kind. "You've changed the balance of power." "We've corrected an injustice," Hayes replied. "And you, Ambassador, will help ensure the collective understands their choice. adapt to a new galactic reality, or face the consequences of the power they created through their rejection. The negotiations lasted weeks. The collective, faced with evidence of their complete security failure and the revelation of a shadow empire that had grown undetected within their territory, had little choice but to accommodate humanity's demands. The quarantine was lifted. Earth received the environmental assistance it desperately needed. The Phantom Alliance, humanity and its fellow outcasts, was recognized as a legitimate power block within galactic society. Admiral Hayes stood once more at the viewport of Lunar Base Artemis, now a bustling diplomatic hub rather than a secret military installation. Below, Earth's healing had begun, with collective environmental technology accelerating the restoration of damaged ecosystems. Admiral Chen, now in her final years but clear-eyed and satisfied, joined her. "Not how I imagined our victory would look," she admitted. "Not victory," Hayes corrected her. "Evolution. They forced us to become something new, something stronger than we might have been as just another member species. From rejection had come resilience. From abandonment had come innovation. The Galactic Collective had intended to contain humanity, but had instead created the catalyst for a fundamental reshaping of galactic politics. The species they had deemed too aggressive, too unpredictable, and too emotional had proven that these very qualities, when channeled correctly, could forge an empire from shadows and alter the course of galactic history. As collective vessels and human ships docked alongside one another in Earth orbit, Hayes reflected on the journey from quarantined outcasts to architects of a new galactic order. The stars had never been kind to humanity, but humans had never needed kindness from the stars, only the opportunity to shine among them on their own terms. And that they had seized for themselves.